Welcome back to GA Fan TV. It is the football review show. Myself, I'm Matthew Hurley from the GA Statsman podcast here, as always, to break down the weekend's football action. Certainly a lot to discuss, a lot to break down. We had some big wins at the weekend, some surprise wins in many ways, and certainly some surprise scorelines, surprise results. I mean, Mayo beating Tyrone was not probably so much of a surprise, but in the manner that they did so, you know, a demolition job in more ways than one. You had Monaghan getting a huge win against Roscommon, putting themselves closer towards promotion. You had big wins for Derry. Louth get the win away to Meath, a result that I predicted in the preview show midweek. So I'm kind of happy I got that prediction right, because there were some Meath fans giving me slack in the comments. So I was kind of happy to get that one right. Dublin as well. I was at that game, hence why I didn't do any reactions for the Mayo Tyrone game yesterday, and we certainly have a lot to discuss about that match as well. And even further down the divisions, I mean, Down beating Westmeath was huge. You had big wins for Wicklow against Laois as well. So yeah, I suppose it was really the weekend where we've seen a lot of surprise results, I'd say.
It was no, Aaron. Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, it was surprises up and down the divisions, like I mentioned in the post earlier on. Big wins for Monaghan, for Louth as well. And yeah, my podcast, I restrained from picking Meath this time, because I got, like yourself, I got a load of comments from Meath fans when I predicted on TikTok that they'd get relegated from Division 2. So I wasn't prepared to put my neck in the line again. But in hindsight, I probably should have. It was a brilliant performance by Louth. But good result for Down as well in Division 3 against Westmeath. And yeah, Wicklow beating Laois as well. So yeah, very good results throughout the weekend. It's hard to believe we're over halfway through the league season, and the league is beginning to take shape now.
Absolutely. We have 16 people tuning in there at the minute, so if you could hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your opinions and thoughts on the games as well. And just as you said there, like 6 weeks away until the championship, which is absolutely mad. So like, even when I was speaking to Dublin fans at the weekend, and we'll certainly get into the game, and people are saying, oh, well, you know, it's only early days and it's only the league, but like 6 weeks away from the championship, you know, like, so, and the games are going to come thick and fast, and there's a lot of games as well. Let's not forget with provincials and then the group stages as well. So, you know, there's certainly a lot to play for.
Exactly, and I was looking at you know, the documents and stuff of when the championships actually start. Like the provincial finals actually are start of May, so it's hard to believe it will come quickly as the season goes on, and obviously the All-Ireland finals in July as well. And there's more games this year, you know, with the round robin system this season. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that. And yeah, I can see your frustrations as a Dublin fan right now. Championship starting in April, but to be honest, like, Aaron, look at Leinster this year, look at Kildare. Meath lost today. Kildare look absolutely woeful. So I think Leinster should be a cakewalk again for you, at least that, in a way. But counties such as the Ulster counties and the Connacht counties, you'll be looking more towards those to, you know, gain a bit of form as the league goes on. And we're seeing now the real teams come up to the fore of the league in the last few weeks, and especially this weekend, we've seen some very impressive results from teams up and down the country. We've seen Mayo last night, Kerry get a win over Armagh, gaining a bit of confidence there. You see Monaghan get a win, Cork, my own county, getting a huge win today. So yeah, there's counties now coming to the fore, and it's probably the right time to do so.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll start with the game that was last night. It was Mayo 4-10, Tyrone 12 points. It was a strange game because I watched it back this morning, and, you know, obviously when you know a result before watching a game back, you're sort of anticipating Mayo being firing on all cylinders and everything else. But they actually only kicked a point after about 20 minutes, which was a little bit odd. And I think Tyrone were 4 points to 1 up at that stage and looking actually fairly comfortable. But once the goals started to flow and once Mayo started to get into their groove, like, this was good night and God bless if you're a Tyrone supporter, because it was another comprehensive defeat for Tyrone, and for Mayo, I suppose, a bit of long-awaited revenge for that 2021 All-Ireland final defeat from a few years ago.
And it's funny because we were chatting on the podcast I had Seamus on during the week, and my own podcast on the Spotify and YouTube, that Mayo haven't necessarily beaten Tyrone in the last few years. You look at the All-Ireland final, you look at the league last season, the game which ultimately sent Mayo down in 2020 as well. And Tyrone won all those games. And there was the question, do Mayo have the bottle to go on and beat Tyrone? And in the first few minutes, you were thinking, Mayo are going to flop again. I don't know what was wrong with them in many senses, but then everything started to flow, everything started to click in. And what I will say, Aidan O'Shea, like, a lot of people have given him slack on social media, maybe unnecessarily so, in recent seasons. But last night he was superb. In the first half alone, 2 goal contributions. He was outstanding. Like, the goal he took was very well taken. The ball into James Carr was an absolute peach of a crossfield ball. It was brilliant to watch from him. And Dermot O'Connor in midfield, outstanding. And the end, the Hessian goal in the second half, superb. From a corner back, it was an outstanding finish. But a lot of people have been focusing on what Mayo did right. But what I'm going to focus on is what Tyrone did wrong. For example, Conal McShane last night, 3 shots, 3 not taken. I mean, I don't know. Since the All-Ireland final, Aaron, I don't know what's happened to McShane. I really don't know. Like, he scored, I think, 2 points so far in the league. Hasn't really contributed. Other than Darragh Canavan and Darragh McCurry. And Rory Canavan, small bit when he came up, but it was too little too late by that point. Tyrone didn't really have a threat. And that's what worries me about Tyrone. And we had Tyrone fans on to us last week saying we didn't watch the game against Galway and stuff like that, and saying they performed brilliant, but it was the amount of wides they got. To be honest, I didn't see much from Tyrone in this game. I didn't see a bit of go about them. I didn't see much interest either. There wasn't, urgency on the sideline either with Dooher and Logan last night. They looked, and Tyrone, it could be a slippery slope, because you look at Monaghan's performance today. I think Tyrone could be on a slippery slope to the Division 2 with Donegal. They look pretty busted. Like I said, Donegal are busted flush. Tyrone looks similar to that. And it's a kind of a shock when you consider they were All-Ireland champions as recently as 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, like, and the crazy thing is about Tyrone is that they play Kerry next week, at home, which look, they've done well enough against Kerry in the last couple of years as well. But then they actually go away to Monaghan, the second last game of the season, and I think they go away to Armagh on the final day as well. Looking at it here, they're at home to Armagh. So I mean, 3 very, very difficult games to finish up the season. But as you were saying there about Mayo, I mean, Aidan O'Shea again was outstanding. I mean, that pass with the outside of his boot was sensational. The goal, I mean, probably got a little bit of luck with the finish, but at the same time, great bit of work setting up the scoring chance. And as he said, like, he's in great form. Like, what do you think has really changed? The fact that he's looked as good as he has? Because, like, last year, you think about it, he was like sort of in and around, like he was being moved around from position to position. You think back to 2021 and he was taken off halfway through the Dublin game and couldn't seem to do anything right. I remember he missed a mark about 20 meters in front of the goal. And it seemed like the pressure just really, really got into him. But that seems to be completely out of the way now. So what do you think has changed?
I'll tell you what's changed. When I looked at the EIB documentary about Kevin McStay and Roscommon, actually, and I noticed the way McStay and Liam McHale, galvanised players a small bit. Like Roscommon, for example, they had brilliant talent that season in 2017, 2016, around that era. But they couldn't convert it to kind of championships, kind of titles. And what McStay did was instill a bit of confidence into the players and say, you can do this, lads. We're going for the kind of title. And I think he's done something with Aidan O'Shea. I think he's a tactician. He's a brilliant motivator more than anything, McStay. And I said it to many Mayo fans. You might not win the All-Ireland this season, or maybe not next season. But I think in the next few seasons, you'll see what an impact that McStay has on that team. He's an incredible motivator when you think about it. And the lads he's brought in, Rochford, McHale. Like, McHale, I think, is unbelievable at motivating players as well. So I think the fact that McStay is, learning off these legends of Mayo GA with McStay and McHale, and the fact McStay has moved him into full forward as well, I think it's a masterstroke. And I think he has to be credited for that as well. So ultimately, I think it's down to the management as to why Aidan O'Shea has done excellent in the last few games. Like, a lot of people said, like, I put out a tweet last night saying it's a redemption arc for Aidan O'Shea, and a lot of people are saying, oh, it's one game. But the reality is, the last 3 games, since the Armagh game, Aidan O'Shea has done absolutely outstanding. Like, that's 3, consistent performances in a row. And you wouldn't have said that with Aidan O'Shea a few seasons ago. I know he has the talent and all that, and he has the ability to bulldoze over players. He has the strength. that many GA players dream of. But the consistency was the problem with O'Shea in recent seasons. And I think McStay has instilled that into him. He's instilled belief into him. And ultimately, it's paying dividends.
Absolutely, yeah. Mikey says Tyrone getting relegated. They have the worst run in. Yeah, I think Tyrone are in big trouble, in my opinion. Keane says Mayo are on 4. Tyrone didn't have any answers to Mayo's super. Tom says, great to see Tommy Conroy back last night. Things often looked worse for us. Yeah, like, and that's the thing with Mayo. I mean, at the moment on form, they're looking like one of the best teams in the country. And, you know, when you think about it, they beat Tyrone comprehensively. They beat Kerry comprehensively. You know, done very well against Armagh for large parts, competed very well against Galway. And when you look at Mayo's squad, you think, like, you know, the sky is really the limit. Like, and I know Mayo fans, I'm sure, won't want to be banging the drum too soon in terms of, you know, Sam is coming home and everything else. But as I even said last week, like, to look this good this early on for Kevin McStay, to have Aidan O'Shea in the form that he's in, James Carr, you know, another brilliant goal from himself once again. Midfield looks solid, defensively not conceding any goals. And as he said, you've got cornerbacks, you know, like selling goalkeepers dummies and everything. Like, when they're trying to attack, like, they just can't seem to do anything wrong here at the moment.
They don't know. Like, even thinking about the goal statistics, I think they've only conceded, I think it's 3 goals conceded, 2 against Galway, 1 against Kerry, and the game against Kerry, it didn't matter in the end. And that's, you know, credit to McStay as well. And then another thing, the credit McStay for switching the tactics a small bit, switching players into positions. Like Conor Loftus, for example, we wouldn't have noticed him as a centre back. I wouldn't anyway. Neither would Seamus Brady. Neither would yourself, I'd say, before the season. But he's slotted into centre back seamlessly, really. You look at David McBrien at full back, Jack Coyne. He's bringing in these young players bit by bit, and they're doing absolutely brilliant for him. Dominic McHugh is another good player. Like, he would have been a big part player the last few seasons, especially last season. But this season, he's coming to his own. And you mentioned the midfield as well, Ruan and Jordan O'Connor. Like, Jordan O'Connor was a colossal figure last night. He was superb. Theo McDonough, Bob Toohey coming in as well and putting in a bit of work there as well. Like Mayo looked very good, even in the forwards. And he mentioned James Carr, 3 goals and 2 points from play so far in 4 games. He's been absolutely outstanding. And again, along with Aidan O'Shea, we knew he had the quality. We've seen him score rockets of goals, especially the one against Galway in 2019. Remember that in the Gaelic grounds, outstanding finish. But the problem with James Carr was he didn't produce it on a consistent basis, or else he was getting injured all the time. But no, he's absolutely on fire. And it's absolutely incredible how it's turned for Mayo. And I do get what Mayo fans are saying. Look, it's early days. We've been through this before where we had an early season. You know, we've gained momentum and all that, especially, I would say 2020 is a main example of that. To be honest with you, after COVID, they looked absolutely outstanding. Mark Moran and all them hitting the lights out. And then eventually they lose to Dublin. So hopefully from a Mayo point of view, that doesn't happen. Hopefully they win the All-Ireland. But when you look at the contenders, the genuine contenders this season, Armagh looked very poor last night. Kerry didn't have a spark about them, even without Shane Clifford on the field. Dublin are struggling badly in Division 2. Look at Donegal, Tyrone, Monaghan, Roscommon. Would you see any All-Ireland champions there? So, I think Mayo genuinely have an opportunity for an All-Ireland this year. I know a lot of people will say there's the Mayo curse and all that, but geez, for once in the last few seasons, I actually believe in this Mayo team that they actually could win the All-Ireland. I hope I don't eat my words now, Aaron. I hope I'm not jinxing Mayo a small bit over this, but yeah, I genuinely believe with these group of players with McStay at the helm, Mayo could go for the Sam Maguire this year genuinely.
Yeah, like, I think they've got a really good chance. Like, you would expect Kerry to get back to full strength. Although Dublin look all over the place at the minute, I still think we'll give it a good stab and we'll be thereabouts. And I think Armagh will be very close as well. But, you know, if Mayo can keep up this consistency and keep playing the way they're playing, you know, like, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And obviously it's different when you're playing in Croke Park as opposed to McHale Park. And I think they've benefited hugely from having the last 2 games at home. But things are looking very good for them indeed. Mikey says, good to see Jason Doherty back and scoring. Never seen a Mayo team with so much strength and depth in the forwards. Jack Carney is a great ball winner if he shows consistency. then that's another game changer for Mayo as well. Maybe a word on Tyrone before we finish up on this game. Sitting bottom of Division 1 now, with Donegal having drawn with Galway. 3 defeats, and when you look at their manner of their defeats as well, like they've been beaten fairly comfortably in all 3 of those games. Fair enough against Galway, they stuck with Galway for large parts, and maybe against Roscommon as well. It was only sort of in the final 15 minutes that they got pulled away. But like as you said there, like when the going gets tough for Tyrone, they just seem to fold. And like looking at it, since they've won that All Ireland, I think it's around 7 or 8 defeats that they've had in either league or championship. So it's been a massive decline, and it seems to be headed towards Division 2.
It does, yeah. And like I didn't watch Tyrone until last night, to be honest with you, in the first 3 games in full. I've only been collecting scoring stats, just looking at their highlights and stuff like that. And I came to the conclusion that McCurry and Canavan were the main players in the team, and Tyrone didn't have anything else other than that. Looking at the game last night, I think the same way, to be honest with you. And that's rarely an occurrence. And even Niall Morgan coming up, they rely heavily on them 3 players. And that's a worry for Tyrone. Like, how was Cathal McShane's form slipped? Conor Myler, Kieran McGeary. Like, these were influential players in 2021. And somehow their form has just gone off a cliff. Conor Kilpatrick's another one. Like, I don't know what's up with this Tyrone team. And defensively, like, you wouldn't necessarily associate Tyrone with poor defending, especially in recent seasons. But last night, they were all over the place. Like, I know the Hessian scored an absolutely outstanding goal. Give credit to a brilliant bit of trickery from the defender. But Tyrone just make it way too easy. When you look back at the clip, it's really, really poor defending now. And I think towards the end of the game, you found a bit of a team with Tyrone as well. Again, like the Derry game in the championship last year, they lost the heads. Like, they got a few black cards, they got a few yellow cards. I think they got 4 yellow cards last night. That was a sign. I think the heads were gone. And I don't know, do Tyrone actually believe in this management team anymore? And you wouldn't have said that in 2021. Like, we said it after they won the All Ireland, that this was possibly going to be a dynasty with this Tyrone team. That they believe that the management for once, with so many years gone with Mickey Hart up until 2020, but it doesn't seem to be that way. I don't know what it is with Dewar and Logan. There doesn't seem to be, as I said, urgency on the sideline either. It's worrying times for Tyrone, and I think look at the next few games. They've Kerry next week. I know it's in Oma, but Kerry can only improve. They have Armagh as well, and let's not forget Armagh are on 3 points, so they'll need the points as much as Tyrone do as well. So I would say Tyrone, they could be gone to Division 2. It's going to be a tough road.
Yeah, no, they're in massive, massive trouble. And as you said there, like you never want to call for managers' heads in the GAA as much, but you would look at it and think that, maybe a change is needed in terms of management for Tyrone. And I know it's the same men who delivered an All-Ireland in 2021, but when you have players opting out, not making themselves available, you're looking at the run of results. You think if they get relegated from Division 1, do next to nothing in the championship this year, which looks likely, then you would be looking at it and thinking that Tyrone really, really do need to make maybe some changes going into 2024. Moving on then, we had Monaghan, who got a big result, 14 points to 11 against Roscommon. It's Roscommon's first defeat of the season, Monaghan's second win of this season as well. And as Farney Fan TV says here, we've just seen Aaron finally not underestimating Monaghan. Yeah, look, I've wrote Monaghan off more times than anyone probably, but look, I have to say they keep proving me wrong. They keep, I think you might predict them to get relegated as well. I think the general fans, even maybe Monaghan fans, probably didn't have that much belief this year. But like Vinnie Corey's got a kick out of Monaghan, and like fair play to them. Like you think the production line is slowing down in terms of McManus getting on, and maybe McCarron in and out of the side with injuries, but they keep going, and 2 wins from 2. I reckon they'll beat Tyrone in a couple of weeks. So as I said in the title there, I think Monaghan are staying up, and I think they'll do it fairly comfortably as well.
And you wouldn't have said that after 2 games in the league season either, Aaron, when you think
No.
about it. Like, it's incredible, really. And I apologise specifically to Monaghan fans as well. I predicted you finished bottom of Division 1. I thought your 9 lives were gone. But yeah, they just keep going on. And I suppose it's kind of a situation where Monaghan has such a small population, and you think the production line's done, basically. They've had that golden era with the Ulster Championship in 13 and 15. That their time in Division 1 is at an end. And let's not forget, Monaghan have been in Division 1 since 2015. For a county the size of Monaghan, that's incredible. And it's something really the likes of Meath, Kildare, Cork, and other counties like that, even Donegal, could learn from, really. And it's brilliant to see that with Monaghan. And when you look at their players all over the field, like, look at their starting lineup against Roscommon today. Jack McCarron scored 4 points. It's 11 points in 2 games. He's come back with a bang. Brilliant performances from him. Carl Gallagher, Shane Carey, Stephen O'Hanlon, Micheál Bannigan, Conor McCarthy. That's their forward line without McManus in it. A lot of people are saying McManus is the beating heart behind Monaghan. Monaghan are a one-man team, including yourself, myself as well. But look at their scores so far this year. It doesn't seem to be that way. It's really, really good for Monaghan so far. You look at Daisy Ward, who's carried his club farm into the inter-county scene. Darren Hughes is doing well at wing back as well. Ryan Wiley, Kieran Duffy's doing very well at centre back. Rory Beggan's still doing well in net. So yeah, Monaghan, they look absolutely excellent so far. They look on fire. And I think they'll beat Tyrone as well. I think they'll survive pretty comfortably as well as that. I think it'll be their 2 Ulster rivals in Tyrone and Donegal that'll leave the Division 1 dynasty this season. So yeah, all looking good for Monaghan. And you wouldn't have said that about Vinnie Corey. I had my reservations about Vinnie Corey being an inter-county manager. But looking at how he's built this team so far, and especially in the last 2 games of the league against Roscommon and Donegal, like, it's been a remarkable turnaround for Monaghan.
Yeah, Farney Fan TV says as well, Beggan has improved well since Kerry. Good to see. Absolutely. And I suppose, like that Tyrone game in 2 weeks' time is definitely going to be huge, because even looking at Monaghan's fixtures, like, they play Galway away next week, which will be a tough game. Galway have kind of been a bit inconsistent themselves so far this year, but will be tough going away to Galway. And obviously they go away to Mayo as well on the final day, albeit Mayo, who knows, could maybe be in a league final at that stage. So, really, really big game. And as Mikey says here, Galway can't afford to lose to Monaghan, because that will certainly drag them back into the race as well. And maybe a word on Roscommon, obviously first defeat of the season. Didn't see any of the game, so it's kind of hard to really judge how they played. But maybe a bit of a reality check. And I suppose after getting the opening 3 wins, safety is wrapped up, but maybe just a small setback for them here.
Yeah, I suppose it's not reason to panic for Roscommon. They've been remarkable in the 3 games themselves, and they're playing Donegal in one of them 3 games that remain. So I think they'll definitely get 2 points there. So I think they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Maybe not a league final necessarily for Roscommon, but as Tommy Rooney said, maybe it'll probably suit Roscommon in a way, because then they can focus on Connacht, they can focus on the All-Ireland series, and I think Roscommon can realistically make a stab at that with the players they have at their disposal. And maybe it's a bit of a reality check, like Seamus Brady said on my podcast, and you've been seeing it over the past few weeks as well, that Roscommon, while they have won 3 games and have got 6 points, they haven't been perfect by any means. And maybe this result today was a bit of a wake-up call. So yeah, Roscommon, I think they'll stay up, but maybe they'll be happy to just focus on the Connacht Championship and the All-Ireland series this season. And before we leave this game as well, the TG Car stream, Jesus, more problems with streaming in the GA. Oh my God, I mean, a lot of people just had to settle for the hurling today, which has no relevance on the league with Limerick and Galway. So that was a real shame. But hopefully those TV companies will learn from their mistakes, and hopefully this sort of thing won't happen again, because I would love to see Monaghan and Roscommon. I don't know about you, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I was planning to watch the game, and then obviously seeing the tweet go out that the game wasn't on, and I don't know whether it was something got to do with conditions or what the story was as to why they couldn't show the game, but a little bit disappointed with that. Farney Fan TV says Jerry Mohan has fallen out of form, too sloppy today, got 1 okay score. And Rommel says Desi out, Gavin in, or Mayo and Kerry will pull away for the next 5 years. Yeah, don't worry, Rommel. I certainly have a lot to say about that a little bit later on. So you just stick around. Gavin says good thing Roscommon got those first 3 wins. And Keane says Roscommon never really got going. And yeah, look, in fairness, like going away to Monaghan, always such a tough place to go to. Like Monaghan are renowned really like to get big results in Clonus, and once again they done so, got the win, and you know it's just such a hard place to go to really.
It is now, yeah. So I think you actually said in the group chat that because TG Harris didn't show up, maybe the Monaghan Ultras were knocking the cameras out. So they could
maybe I don't know, you know, maybe they just nick the cameras or something. You just don't know. Like.
You know that I know we laugh and all that, but that could be believable, you know. But oh man, but yeah, it is a very tough place to go, and it will be tough for any Ulster team in the Ulster Championship definitely. So yeah, it should be interesting to see how Monaghan get on. I think they actually played Tyrone in the first round in Ulster, so look at the form so far. I think Monaghan could beat Tyrone, but then they have Derry in the semi-final. We'll get on to Derry in a minute, but imagine Derry Monaghan semi-final with the two sides in brilliant form as they are now. That'd be some belter.
Yeah, moving on then, we'd Kerry 12 points, Armagh 11 points in Tralee. Big result for Kerry in the end. It was a game that really went either way at different stages. I mean, Kerry were 2 points in front at different stages. Armagh dragged it back, and then they were 2 points in front. Like the lead never went bigger than 2 points for either side, and like it could have easily been a draw, and it probably wasn't the greatest spectacle. It was a very overly tactical game, I felt, but a needed win for Kerry, because like when you look at how the league table is shaping up, I mean, Kerry would have been sitting joint bottom if they didn't win this game. So, you know, a huge win for them.
Big win for Kerry, yeah. It was, you know, a lot of grinding that was needed in that game last week, but they got over the line in the end. And as for the game, the quality-wise, I was expecting much of a better atmosphere or spectacle, to be honest, Aaron. It was really drab, that game. Yeah, you'd be better off watching Wales and England in the Six Nations, because that was pretty poor stuff. Like 7 points from play on either side. Clifford didn't really get a sniff either, and a lot of people were blaming Armagh. Yeah, I'd go to that extent as well. Like Armagh conceded nearly every kick out to Kerry last night. Like I know the stats say that Kerry won a load of kickouts and all that, but that was because they were kicking it short, and Armagh were just progressing backwards. Like, you know, it was really poor to watch now. And even when Kerry had the lead, they kind of shed a small bit as well, Aaron. So, like, I don't know, can Kerry fans talk at all about that? But in terms of quality as well, when you brush aside defensive systems, the quality for the likes of Sean O'Shea, David Clifford, a load of other players in the Armagh team as well that you'd expect to stand up as well, was non-existent. It was pretty poor. It was poor stuff. Maybe Kerry fans will say, look, we got over the line, we'll move on to the next game now. And I think Kerry will think like that, but it is kind of a worry that this is the best performance Kerry can put up with the likes of what we mentioned were Kerry's key players last week that were missing and are now coming back into the team, in David Clifford, Sean O'Shea and Shane Ryan. All of them three started last night, and still Kerry looked pretty poor. So, like, I think it's kind of a wake-up call that Jack O'Connor needs. That Kerry aren't as good as what they think they are, maybe. Maybe people were thinking they were excellent last year, the All-Irelands, and suddenly they'll become excellent again this season. But even with the main players out in the field, they had much their main team last night, and it didn't seem to click. It really didn't. But yeah, I was probably more disappointed with Armagh, to be honest, with their tactics. But Kerry will look at themselves as well and think, we got away with that one.
Yeah, like they did defend really well, Armagh. Like there was no real goal chances from Kerry from what I remember, but it did seem maybe like Armagh were setting up to play the Kerry of last year, like as if they just, you know, it was the Kerry team that played in the All-Ireland final. And look, it more or less was that Kerry team, but as we know, so far this year, they haven't been in form. And like it did surprise me a little bit that Armagh didn't get after Kerry a bit more and sort of try put them on the back foot, press up on kickouts, because like we've seen Mayo do it, and they caused all sorts of problems. So it seemed like Armagh were very, very conservative, and like it nearly worked. They nearly got away with the win, but at the same time, you would have looked at it, especially in the first half with the breeze that was in their favour in the first half. You think they would have took a bit more risks to build up a bit more of a lead, and they didn't do so.
Exactly. So, and yeah, look, with the breeze, even Kerry with the breeze as well, they were parking the bus at times in the second half. Like, you'd think, what is the point in having a win to your advantage when you're just going to use these tactics? It's like where the day is gone where the game is just decided by quality and playing on the front foot and kick passing and brilliant playing Gaelic football. It's now down to tactics and stuff like that. It's ridiculous, really, when you think about it. And yeah, it was a pretty poor game last night when you look at it. Like the only main player last night that I could see scoring wise was Rian O'Neill. To be quite honest with you, like Kerry didn't play well, Armagh didn't play well. Like I think even the commentators last night got pretty bored looking at it. It was very poor quality. I think the most exciting part, Aaron, to be honest with you, was the kids running on the pitch at the end of the game. That was probably it was great to see them get to meet their heroes and all that. But yeah, honestly, that was the most exciting part of the game. All jokes aside, it was no, it wasn't great. It wasn't great, and you'd have to wonder what's the point in having a win to your advantage if you're just not going to use it.
Yeah, like I thought they did well defensively. Like I don't think Clifford scored from play, and then they were very well set up. But at the same time, I think there's a time. It would have been more suited to play like that in the second half, and in the first half for the opening 15, 20 minutes, just take more risks. Maybe you could build up a lead, go 5 or 6 points in front. But they just didn't do so. Keane says poor game, pressure mounts on McGeaney and co. Following this defeat, Kerry won't care how the game was won. A win is a win, according to Jack O'Connor. And yeah, like looking at Armagh, like 1 win from 4 games, and looking at their final 3 league games. So they play Donegal at home next week, which is a huge must-win game from an Armagh perspective. They then play Galway at home and then Tyrone away. So massive pressure on Armagh to get a win against Donegal next week, because like if they were to get beat by Donegal next week or not even win the game, they're in massive relegation trouble as well.
And the funny thing is, we wouldn't have thought that at the start of the season really. You would have thought Armagh would have been at the upper end and contesting for the league title. But you're right. It's a huge game for Armagh next week. And when you think about it, they have much better players than Donegal. They're a much better, a trajectory than Donegal as well. So they have to play on the front foot next week. There's no point in parking the bus and having the brilliant players like Rian O'Neill and all them at your disposal, Tyrone Kelly as well at your disposal, if you're just not going to use them. It's ridiculous at times. Okay, do it against Kerry when they're all Ireland champions, and you think they were the Kerry last year that was going to turn up in Tralee last night. But against Donegal, no excuses. Armagh have to play on the front foot next week. If they don't do that, Donegal, as bad as Donegal are, they could nip Armagh if Armagh play this defensive tactics next week. I genuinely think so. Like it's poor to watch. It's ineffective. Like at the end of it, I know it was a point in it, but Kerry won the game at the end of the day. Like if Donegal win next week, huge questions are going to be asked to Kieran McGeaney. And I think they mentioned on the RT panel last night, how many years has McGeaney been Armagh manager now? What is it? 6, 7 years? So he has to get a title, get at least an Ulster title or a league title or some kind of trophy in the cabinet. And Armagh aren't going to do that if they they butcher this game next week. So huge pressure on these Armagh players. And you wouldn't have thought that at the start of the season, especially after their form at the tail end of last year. Let's not forget, they took the All-Ireland finalists all the way to a penalty shootout. They were that close to an All-Ireland title last year. And now they're staring down the barrel of relegation if they mess it up next week.
Yeah, like and like I didn't think they were poor against Kerry. I just think they were set up wrong. Like I think going forward, they were good. They were clinical in some of the chances that they had. Like other than Rian O'Neill's 45, I think that went wide. I thought they were fairly clinical. So it was just a matter that I think that tactically they were set up wrong. And I think you do have to point the book at McGeeney there for that game going wrong from an Armagh perspective. Dylan says, I was at Kerry v Armagh. It was a very tense atmosphere. You could tell both teams really wanted this win and probably trying not to make silly mistakes. And I suppose two other sides that were probably in similar nature, not looking to make silly mistakes and all the rest, was Donegal and Galway. Finished 1-9 apiece. Similar to the Kerry Armagh game, I felt it wasn't a great spectacle. And Paul Conroy, obviously, with that lay free, which I've seen a few video angles and a few replays. It actually looked like it went over the bar. So I think the umpires might have got that one wrong. So Galway maybe unlucky actually not to come away with the win in the end. But I suppose a point each for either side here.
Yeah, and a valuable point for Donegal there. I would say, like, I looked at the clips and it looked over the bar. I mean, there's a call from many GA accounts now to have Hawkeye in every GA round before VAR is even brought in. And I actually agree with that, because you have points like that. That decision could relegate Galway at the expense of Donegal. It could come down to that at the end of the league season, and then the GA will have major egg in their faces after this. It's an incredibly bad decision, really. But Donegal won't care. They've got the point at least. They got a penalty through, and to be honest, like, if they didn't get awarded the penalty, Galway were, saved a few blushes there, because that would have been an embarrassing OG, to be honest with you. But Oisin got stuck away the penalty. But Matthew Tierney was brilliant today, 1-3, and he's one of the top 10 scorers across the two divisions. I think he scored 2 goals and 10 points in 4 games. So he's done absolutely outstanding. And maybe a player that's gone under the radar in recent games for Galway. So he's done very well in the absence of Damien Comer and Shane Walsh, and Rob Finnerty as well, even though Finnerty came on and got 2 points today. Very good performance from him. So it was a despite the point, Donegal would be happy to come out with the draw, happy enough with the performance. A lot of people, including myself, would have said they'd be stuck on 2 points for the rest of the league campaign. But in fairness, they showed a bit of grit today and they got the 2 points. So well done to Donegal for that. But that decision towards the end could be costly towards the end of the league campaign.
Yeah, and you think about it as well. Like, if Donegal were to stay up by a single point and the team below them, like how would they feel about a decision like that? So it definitely could have huge implications. All right. Looking at Galway, do you think they could be worried a little bit in terms of their lack of scoring from their forwards? I mean, as you said, Matthew Tierney scored 1-3. Cathal Sweeney got himself a point. Robert Finnerty got 2 points, but nothing from Ian Burke. You obviously have Damien Comer, who's injured at the minute. Shane Walsh is obviously away in Australia, and I think the word on the street is that he's not going to be back until the championship at the minimum. So, for Galway, they are, like, Tom O'Callaghan's still injured. They are lacking forwards, I think. And Matthew Tierney aside, they're not really getting enough from their forwards, I don't think.
And to ram the point even more, their highest scorer from play is actually a wing back, Cathal Sweeney, with 4 points. So I think they're badly struggling for forwards. I know Robert Finnerty's been injured and all that, so he definitely come back into form now. But even looks like Johnny Heaney, their wing forward, 1 point on the board. Ian Burke, 2 points in 4 games. That's not really good enough, really. Peter Cook, 2 points from play, not really good enough. Dessie Keneally, and he was on fire for Mike Cullen in the club championship. Where's he gone? He scored nothing for play in the league campaign. So I'd be worried for Galway in that sense. They do have quality players, there's no doubt about that. And I think Cara Joyce knitted the team together pretty handily last year. Looking at their performances up to the All-Ireland final, well, even in the All-Ireland final, they were absolutely superb. And maybe on another day could have got something out of the Kerry game that day. But other than Shane Walsh and Damien Comer, maybe to an extent Robert Finnerty, they're really, really struggling. And Matthew Tierney's nearly carrying the team on their back. But the caveat to that, Aaron, I suppose, is Damien Comer's out, Shane Walsh is out, Tom O'Callaghan's another player that's out. He'll come back into the team as well. Dessie Keneally, you'd have to feel, will come back into form. Ian Burke has only come into his first inter-county season in 2-3 years. So, he'll come back into form pretty soon, I'd imagine, once he gets his feet into it. So there's negatives there for Galway, but I would say give it a bit of time for these players to find their groove a small bit, and we'll see how they react. Maybe the first game of the championship, I think it's either against Mayo or Roscommon or something like that in the Connacht Championship. We'll see how they perform then. But if they, in terms of the league campaign, if they get one more win, I think they should be safe. So yeah, they'll focus on that.
Yeah, and as for Donegal, I mean, again, another game where they haven't really scored that much. Like 1-9 is what they finish with, but like they are battling and they are fighting, and I suppose they're tough to beat at home. Like they beat Kerry at home, they've drawn with Galway at home, so they've 3 points on the board. So we probably shouldn't write them off as soon as maybe what we were. But what do you think?
But when you think about it, like maybe the draw today was kind of lucky. When you think about it, because of the Paul Conroy point and stuff like that, like when you look at their performance, especially against Monaghan last week, conceding 120. I mean, that was pretty poor. Losing to Tyrone by 8 points. And we talked about Tyrone at the start of the show being strugglers. And Tyrone absolutely bossed Donegal. So, I mean, there's still issues in that camp. Like, they play Armagh away next week. That is the major test for this Donegal team. If they go to the Gaelic grounds and win, then I'd say I'll hold my hands up and Donegal are coming on the right road. But if they lose that game, I think they're still goners arm. I know. I just think they are. I don't see a spark in this Donegal team. Like Conor O'Donnell scored another 2 points today in fairness to him, and he's putting up a good show. Shane Gannon as well. But other than that, there's not enough scores for me in this Donegal team. And like when they win a point, or when a team gets a run with a goal and a point, maybe 2 goals and a point or something like that, they fall apart. And that's my issue with Donegal, really. We'll see in the acid test against Armagh next week. If they struggle in that game, I rest my case. But if they make a good point of it next week, if they go to the Atlantic grounds and win, then I'll say, okay, they're on the road for survival. But we'll have to see the proof will be in the pudding next week.
Definitely, yeah. Like, and looking at Donegal's final 3 games, like I think they've the toughest really out of any side in the relegation run-in. Like they're away to Armagh, home to Mayo, and then away to Roscommon. So, and when you think about it, Mayo and Roscommon will probably have something to play for going into those final 2 games, given the fact that they're both sort of the higher end of the table, and they'll want to be in that league final, make no question about that. Moving on to Division 2, and I suppose we'll start with the action from Croke Park yesterday. It was Dublin 16 points clear, 1-12. As I was saying to you off air, like I did go to the game. I got there about 20 minutes late just because I was watching the Kerry Armagh match. And it was sort of late notice in the end going to the match. But yeah, like to be honest, a very abysmal performance really from Dublin once again. Another performance that has lacked any energy, any idea, any creativity, defensively wide open, even though we're trying to play hugely defensive, which at times was baffling. Like there was times in that game where we'd every man inside around 45, but we were 5 points down. And Clare, like they could have really put the nail in our coffin. Like Gavin Cooney gets a goal right before half time. They kick on in the second half with a couple more points. Emmett McMahon, I thought a very, very good game. And even, Clare's last point was actually a chance for a goal that blazed over the bar. And if that goes in, Clare 8 points clear with about 10 minutes to go. And for me, there would have been no way back in my opinion. There has been a few comments coming in here that I'll just read out in relation to the game. Derek says, don't panic completely about the Dubs. Yeah, talking camp, heavy training has not fully got underway. They will be thereabouts in the summer. It's all about timing. I do agree to a certain extent, like with the fact that I do think we'll be thereabouts and we will improve. But I think at the same time, like we're playing Clare, who, like in fairness, have done very well. And look, they've been competitive in Division 2 for a number of years. They fought very, very well, and they're always a sticky team to beat. But I just think the lack of idea and energy, and Clare missed chances. Like Clare could have beaten us quite comfortably in the end. And I just think from a Dublin perspective, like you play with 4 too much, you'll get punished. And, against Cork, Kildare and Clare, we could have easily, lost those games. Dublin could have been in a relegation battle in Division 2. Like, and we're talking about Dublin, the capital of Ireland, the team that has, or the county that has, so much population, so much resources, as everyone has said previously. And we, no word of a lie, if we had lost 1 or 2 games, especially with the fact that we play Louth on the final day, we could have ended up in the Tailteann Cup. You know what I mean? Like, and that's talk about one of the biggest embarrassments in GAA history. Now, I know we ended up getting the wins in the end, and promotion is probably likely to happen, but I don't know. Like, I think last year there was a lot of messing around, and it just seems to be the same this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's worrying signs when there's rants going around the camp and you've won 4 games out of 4. So yeah, but I suppose that's down to the quality that Dublin had in recent seasons. Like, who would have thought you'd go from winning 6 in a row Sam Maguire titles to struggle against Kildare, Cork, and Clare, and lose to Kildare last season as well. I mean, it's a steady decline from this Dublin team. And what I was hearing, I obviously didn't watch the match because it wasn't televised last night, but what I was hearing from yourself and another Clare fan that I know as well, very well, was that Clare had a few refereeing decisions go against them. And that was the big thing as well. And to think about it, Clare now, it's switching the attention now to Clare for a minute, because I think, Aaron, you said all you need to say about Dublin's demise there. But about Clare, the last 2 games, they've been, kind of robbed by referees in recent weeks. Look, you look at the Emma McMahon decision against Kildare and now last night. I mean, how unlucky can you get, really? And now they're in the bottom 2. I stand to be corrected on that. I think they're in the bottom 2 due to head-to-head with Kildare. But, that's pretty unlucky for Clare. Really, really unlucky. And when you look at their next few games, the Cork game now for Clare is so, so crucial. Because the next game they have after that is Derry, away from home in Owen Beg. I don't see Clare getting anything out of that, to be honest with you, looking at Derry's form. So Cork is a huge, huge game now for them in Ennis. There's huge pressure on this Clare team now, despite performing admirably. Like, Gavin Cooney scoring 1-2 last night was brilliant. Owen Cleary had a brilliant performance. I was hearing Emma McMahon made Crow Park his own last night. I was hearing, like, there was brilliant performances all over the field. And they really bossed Dublin, what I was hearing anyway. And you wouldn't have said that about a Clare team a few years back. It's an incredible rise, and there's still quality coming out of Clare. And it's very good. And Colin Collins deserves absolute credit for even challenging with Dublin last night. A lot of people were saying on podcasts, your podcast, my own podcast, we were saying Clare have no chance. It's about how Dublin, approach this game in a way. And we weren't rating Clare to win this game. And it's a huge credit to Clare that they were winning within a point of Dublin. They were 6 points up. It's incredible, really, when you think about it. And it was an incredible performance by Clare last night. But from your point of view, from a Dublin point of view, I'd say there's going to be a lot of soul searching. Like, Derry's next now. That's a huge game for you next week. Like, if he get a hammering off with Derry in the Celtic Park next week, maybe that's the reality check, the kick up the backside that these Dublin footballers need in a way.
Yeah, Derek also says here, we had a surreal team with Jim Gavin. This is finding new talent and integration into the team and panel. And yeah, like, there is a few new lads coming in, like Lee Gannon, and obviously getting Jack McCaffrey back as well. But, like, when you look at the team that Dublin played against Clare, like, it's probably not too far off Dublin's team that's actually going to be competing in the All-Ireland. Or let's say, Dublin are playing Kerry in the All-Ireland. Like, this will be more or less the side. Like, they had Dean Rock there, they had Con O'Callaghan, Kieran Kilkenny played. You'd Brian Fenton, who played around midfield. James McCarthy was there. Fair enough, we'll likely, have Paul Mannion to return at some point. Although, again, another game has gone by without him playing, which, in some ways is a little bit worrying, because you're wondering, like, when is he going to play? Obviously Cormac Costello came on at half-time, made a bit of an impact. Owen Merchant came on towards the end of the match. But generally speaking, like, it was more or less Dublin's strongest team that's available to them. Like, obviously when McCaffrey gets fully fit and fully back into the side, you'd imagine he'd start. Owen Merchant and Costello will probably be starters, and Paul Mannion will probably be a starter. But, generally speaking, the spine of the team is there. And, like, it's not even like the fact we only beat Clare by a point. It's just the lack of energy, the lack of urgency, the fact that we've got every man inside our own 45 playing super defensive without achieving that. And, like, we were 4 or 5 points down, and it was just like, what really tipped the game was, I think Dublin kicked 1 or 2 points. The crowd got up. We won a couple of kickouts. I think a row broke out and a few yellows were dished out, and the fans just got up for it. And I think Dublin just sort of, boiled up for it from there. So, but yeah.
If you said that a few seasons ago, that would be the reason you'd beat Clare. I'd imagine, Aaron, you'd be an embarrassed Dublin fan. No disrespect now to Clare, no disrespect at all, but like, it's a question of how far back can you go, really? Like, even looking at the team last night, I know you played defensively with a load of men behind the ball, but even looking at your team last night, I know he had a load of talent and all that, but what I noticed, David Byrne was playing a wing forward as sort of a sweeper against Clare. Why? Seriously, why? Like, even the Cork game last week, like I said on the live stream on your channel last week, why are Dublin being so defensive against a team like Cork that has struggled in the past few seasons? And again, against Kildare, why is there need for it? And like, you tried it once against Kildare, didn't work, so don't do it again. You've done it twice more. It's the fact you don't know, really, but maybe we'll see a different Dublin next week. Maybe. It's just a maybe, but we said it after the Cork game that you'll turn up for the Derry game now, but look at that performance now last night. I don't know where a performance is going to come out of, to be honest with you. Like, I know Galway stuck 4 goals past Derry last year, and it was a defining moment in the promotion race. But to be honest, if we're both being real, I don't think Dublin are scoring 4 goals against Derry. Look at their performances so far. Let's be honest here. Paul Mannion, like, I'd say he'll come back in the team and definitely improve. Dean Rock isn't offering enough from play. I know he's one of the top scorers in the top 2 divisions, but again, it's mostly frees. Con, even last night, he only scored a point. So, to me, look at the Scorpio app, he looked anonymous. Kieran Kilkenny, again, we talked about Kieran Kilkenny last week. He doesn't seem to be having any influence, does he, on this Dublin team this season? So, it's... Yeah, it's really, but even Ross McGarry coming off at half-time scoring nothing. Like, I looked at Ross McGarry last year thinking, oh, there's a player there. Larkin O'Dell, there's a player. They don't seem to be hitting the lights out. So I don't know what is up with the Dublin side at the moment. Like, you need a Jack McCaffrey to come on and jizz the crowd up, a bit of a brawl breaking out to jizz the crowd up a small bit. And if you need those sort of elements to beat a team who... I know Clare have made strides on Colin Collins, and fair play to them, but Derry stuck 5 goals past them in Croke Park last season. So it kind of shows. Like, I think Seamus actually mentioned on my podcast that exact game, and Dublin need to be, beating Clare quite comfortably if they're going to be challenging for All Ireland titles. And it didn't seem that way last night. So yeah, I know a lot of people would say you're panicking, Aaron, but honestly, I could see your panic and your frustration in this Dublin team. Look at the results anyway.
Yeah, like, and it is a strange one, as you said. Like, we've won every game, and obviously we're 4 points clear in promotion. So in the promotion race, so promotion most likely will happen unless we lose them more than one game between now and the end of the in the final 3 matches. But look, we could have easily had 2 or 3 defeats already. So. We'll obviously have to wait and see. Mikey says here, Dubs like living on the edge. I think they'll raise their game for Derry. I think they will as well, in fairness. And I think because it's such a big game that, could very well happen maybe in terms of an All-Ireland quarter-final or possibly even more. And the fact that, Dublin know that Derry offer so much, I think Dublin will raise the game. But I just think the worry is that, we do look very lethargic, and Derry look seriously good at the minute. They look very, very good. Like, they absolutely, like, we'll get onto it in a minute, but they completely steamrolled Kildare. They walked the floor with Meath. They walked the floor with Limerick. They struggled to be loud, but I honestly think Louth are a lot better than people think, in my opinion. We'll get onto them as well. Like, but yeah, Rommel says expecting Dublin to go through the gears and win Leinster, but not sure if they can win the All-Ireland. Yeah, I suppose maybe to finish up on a clear perspective, like, obviously a lot of people were, I suppose, giving out about some of the decisions, obviously, towards the end of the game. And obviously there was a late black card that was dished out. I'm not entirely sure what it was actually for from looking at it. It just looked like like a big fight broke out and a few people were shouldering each other, and then, a few yellows were dished out, a black card was given out, and then Dublin sort of, kicked on and got the final score from the resulting free. But like from a Clare perspective, like you nearly feel bad for them. Like they're coming so close to getting big wins, but they just can't quite get it over the line. And you are looking at it and thinking, like, it'd be strange to see them go down because I think they've done very well, but relegation does seem very likely at this moment in time.
And as I said at the top of the discussion about this game, like Clare have been outstanding in the last few games. They should have beaten Kildare, but we seen the images last week. Emma McMahon, that was a scandalous decision to not allow that point, and they should have beaten Kildare that day. And you'd argue Clare are safe as houses then if they win that game. They performed well last night. They were 6 points up. But according to a few Clare fans now, again, I stress, I haven't watched the game, but according to them, they were wrongfully done by the referee last night. And I'm watching Alliance League Sunday now. And if the Clare fans are right about it, I mean, they should feel pretty grieved in the last two games. And it is a disgrace in many ways. But as I said previously, the next 3 games now for Clare, they've Cork at home. That's a huge game now for Clare. I know they've had Cork's number the last few seasons, but like they lost to Cork in the McGrath Cup, and I still think there's some part of me thinking Cork will lose, but at the same time, Cork has scored 10 goals in the past 3 games. They are on fire at the moment, so this is going to be still a tough game for Clare. But when you look at Clare's next game, they have Derry away. I know Clare are performing well, but I don't see them getting any points there. They'll beat Limerick in the last day, no bother. But my worry about Clare, I think it goes down to head-to-head. Correct me if I'm wrong now, Aaron. If it goes down to head-to-head, if 2 teams are level on the same points, themselves and Kildare, I'd assume both of them will beat Limerick pretty easily. They'll both end up on 4 points. But because Kildare beat Clare in Ennis, Kildare will finish ahead of Clare. And it's unfair in many ways. It really is unfair. A decision like that from Emma McMahon last week will ultimately decide who goes down to the Tailteann Cup. It's just wrong, I think, Aaron. And the GA, again, like the Donegal and Galway incident, too many of them are now happening. And it's worrying. It really is worrying. And it's a problem we need to fix and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just having a look there. I think they're actually playing Cork next week at home, I think, Clare, because I think Dublin are traveling to Derry away. But nonetheless, like that is a huge game. Like the next 2 games are Cork and then they play Derry away before they play Limerick. So when you think about it, if Kildare can get another win on the board, if Louth can get another win on the board, it could be possible that Clare might even be relegated already by the time they play Limerick. So a lot definitely to ponder there. Moving on, then it was Kildare 7 points, Derry 2-15. Big result from a Derry perspective. I mean, they done what they done to Meath, what they've done now to Kildare, a complete whitewash. We were saying it before we started. I think Kildare kicked 2 points from play in the game, which is just baffling. And the old expression goes, they used to say Newbridge or nowhere. I tell you what, the 2 games they've played in Newbridge, they might as well have gone nowhere because they've been absolutely picked apart from start to finish, and this has been no different again.
You were waiting to tell that joke, no, Aaron, that bullet. Jesus.
Yeah, I was waiting for that one all weekend, to be honest.
Oh, I'd say you love that now. Jesus.
I'd say the Mayo fans probably like it as well, in fairness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But in some ways, I know we're laughing at all that, but in some ways, it's true. Yeah. 2 points for play. I mean, that's horrendously bad for Kildare. And I think I'm looking through the Scorpio app now. I think they scored. I think it was both those 2 points for play actually came in the first half. They didn't score anything from play in the second half. God, it's a terrible. Like I've been on to a few Kildare fans, who know in particular. I think a TikToker, if you know him, Keno Costo, he's a big Kildare fan. Been on to him now in recent hours or recent weeks, and geez, he's very disappointed with this Kildare team. And it's really weird when you think about it, Aaron, because last season, 3 home games, 5 points out of a possible 6, and the only point they dropped was against the All-Ireland champions, Kerry. They've been brilliant in the Division 1, and So far in Division 2 in Newbridge, they lost to Cork by 13 points. They've now lost to Derry by, what was it, 14 points? My God, I don't know what's happened Kildare in the past few weeks or so. I don't know what's gone on. But when you think about it, the first league game against Dublin, we were saying it throughout the weeks, they could have easily beaten Dublin if they had a bit more ambition. And now to think they could be a danger of relegation, the thing that could save them from relegation is that refereeing decision in Ennis last week. It's mad. It really is mad to think about that. And yeah, really, really poor result from Kildare. And yeah, it's impossible to see where they go from here. And the Leinster draw, they're actually on the same side as Dublin. So yeah, I don't think they're getting to a Leinster final either. So even if they do finish sixth, they could still end up at the Tatian Cup. So yeah, worrying times for Kildare football. But as for Derry, we have to give them credit as well. In 3 out of the 4 games, they've been absolutely superb. Unlike Dublin, they've hit the lights out in nearly every game. And I think they've been absolutely outstanding. Shane McGuigan is now top scorer in the top 2 divisions with 224, and rightly so. He's an incredible footballer, incredible scoring rate. Niall Turner as well, 2-7 in 4 games. He's done absolutely outstanding. Noel Loughlin with a goal again today. Now, Derry are absolutely flying. And Rory Gallagher, we said it last season, he's probably one of the best coaches in Ireland. And we probably stick to that reasoning as well. He's been absolutely superb with this Derry team. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's another Ulster title in this Derry team. Like the way Armagh played last night against Kerry, the way Donegal and Tyrone are playing, they're playing Monaghan in the semi-final. That'll be a big game. Really big game in Ulster semi-final if Monaghan get past Tyrone, that is. But Derry, I wouldn't be surprised, Aaron, if there's a second Ulster title in a row.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think when you look at how well they've started, they've clearly carried on that form from last year, and they seem to have found more lads who've come in, the likes of Paul Cassidy, Lakeland Murray, Owen McAvoy in there, a fullback as well. Like so, they're getting a lot of options. But bringing it back to Kildare, like they didn't obviously Jimmy Hyland. I don't think just looking on Scorpio, I don't think he played. He's obviously a big forward from a Kildare perspective. Like looking at it there, Jack Robinson went off after 30 minutes. Daniel Flynn came on but didn't score. From looking at it there. Like Dara Kirwan kicked 3 points, Neil Flynn with 2 points, Paddy McDermott with 1 point. But like it's just hard to know like where has it actually gone wrong for Kildare, because like as we said in Division 1 last year, even when they were getting beat, they were competitive. Like they were pushing teams. There was a lot to play for. And like, is it like Mikey says here, the Mayo Championship game last year has broken Kildare psychologically? Sad. I'm not too sure I'd 100% agree with that, but I think at the same time there seems to be something clearly just wrong with Kildare, and like the wheels have just completely fallen off, which is surprising when you look at how well they played at times last year, and probably even should have beat Mayo and Croke Park in that game.
And here's a stat that'll actually boil Kildare fans' brains as well. In the top 2 divisions, the only side not to score a goal in 4 games, Kildare. Look, I mean, we said previously that their attack is lethal with the likes of Jimmy Hyland, Dara Kieran, Neil Flynn, Alex Byrne is a decent player there as well. Paddy McDermott can still score points up the field. Jack Robinson has come into his own this year, but the reality is no goals scored. That's shocking from Kildare. And when you look at it, like the fella in the comment section there mentioned Mayo game, I actually would disagree with that, but say the game before that, the Dublin game, because that, in a way,
Yeah.
it highlighted the defensive problems that Kildare had, and maybe they tried to tighten up defensively in a way, and then their attackers just lost confidence. I don't know what it was, but I think that game against Dublin, they went into that game in Croke Park with so much hope that they would win the first Leinster title since 2000. There was so much optimism in Kildare football at that time. And then Dublin go ahead and score 5 goals in the first half and break them. So I think it was that game where I think Kildare fell apart, really. But I didn't think they'd fall apart as much as they've done so far. For example, the Cork game, I didn't see that coming at all. Conceding, what was it? They scored 2 points in 1 half of football. I mean, wow, like this is just shocking, really. They didn't score for play at all in the second half in this game against Derry. I mean, this is their whole fortress, Newbridge. And I've seen a few images on social media as well. The Kildare fans seem to not believe either. They went up and walked up and left. It doesn't seem to be, clicking for this Kildare side. And when you look at the management team, they have Glenn Ryan, Johnny Doyle, Anthony Rainbow, Dermot Early. You would have thought there would have been a kick in this Kildare team with them legends in the background team. But it doesn't seem to be that way. I think they'll get away with not getting relegated because I think they'll beat Limerick. Limerick will get out to them later. They're out of their depth in this division, and that'll be enough to keep them in the league. Luckily for Kildare, because if they went out to Division 2, that would have been disastrous. Especially after good performances in Division 1 last season. But ultimately, despite the fact they won't be relegated, I think this has been a terrible league campaign for Kildare, and they massively have to improve. Or else Glen Ryan could be shown the door at the end of the season. Because if Kildare's performances don't pick up, I don't see a way back from, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think Kildare, they should set higher standards for themselves. I mean, like they were clearly the second best team in Leinster last year. There was the I suppose word on the street was that Kildare had bridged the gap. Let's not forget they'd beaten Dublin last year in the league in Newbridge. And look, albeit they were beaten comprehensively by Dublin in the Leinster final, conceded 5 goals and a half. But like sometimes these things can happen. And I did think last year that Kildare had the gap had bridged ever so slightly. Not so much that Kildare were now favourites going into Leinster this year, but the general consensus was that they were closing in on Dublin. When you looked at Kildare's underage, they won an under-20 All-Ireland a couple of years ago as well. You got the feeling that they were closing in on Dublin, but now these results have just set them way back. And I'd go as far as saying that they're probably, not even the third best team in Leinster now, or even the fourth, which is a massive drop.
It's a huge drop when you consider they were under 20 champions in 2018. You would have thought the players would have, broke into the senior team, especially this season. It's an incredible demise for Kildare. Like I think Louth are probably better than them if you're going by that. I think Meath are better, Dublin obviously are better, Westmeath possibly. Would you say Offaly are better? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but give or take, yeah. But I mean, I suppose it's hard to judge. Probably not, in fairness. Maybe I was a bit harsh there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going all in on Kildare tonight, aren't you? Yeah, but it's an incredible drop for Kildare, and I think they're going to massively struggle in Leinster this year, and I think if they're going to be in the Sam Maguire this year, they'll only be in it just about, and you wouldn't have said that about a Kildare team in the past few seasons or so. So Glen Ryan has to fix a lot of problems in the next few weeks, and even look at their next few games. I think they've Louth. They definitely have Limerick, and they have they play Dublin, Meath. Yeah, that's the other game. But they have to massively improve in the next 3 games. Like those 3 games should be in normal circumstances should be winnable for Kildare, so they should be targeting them definitely.
Yeah, like they beat Louth, I think, by 20 odd points in the championship last year. So it is, and you nearly look at them as underdogs now going into that game. It's kind of baffling, really, how quick these games can come at you, and the results can just completely change your perspective on the next game. But I suppose as we were speaking about Louth, I mean, what a result for them! 115 to 112 was the score away in Navan. They were trailing for large parts, but it was a late goal by Craig Lennon going into the final 10 minutes. A couple of late points from the likes of Samuel Roy and Darren McConnon, and Louth come away with the victory. Revenge for 2010? I'm not so sure, but it's still a win nonetheless for Louth against their rivals.
Big win, yeah. And a lot of Meath fans are actually unhappy with the Craig Lennon goal because they thought it was a double hop. I've seen Tommy Rooney's tweet. Yeah.
Well.
But I will say this, Aaron. Cillian O'Sullivan's goal against Cork was steps. So I suppose it does come around and roundabouts. Karma, it does exist. But yeah, it's a brilliant. In all seriousness, it's a brilliant result for Louth. Brilliant result. You wouldn't have. I said to you off here as well. Who would have thought Louth after match day 4 would be 4th in Division 2? It's mad. It really is mad. It's a brilliant performance by Louth. With this result, I think they've all but sealed survival. When you think about it, they've done absolutely outstanding in the league campaign. They've done brilliant. So Yeah, it's a brilliant result for Louth. I think it's a credit to the management team, Mickey Hart. And what I will say about Louth, I was critical of them last year, especially against Cork in the qualifier game. They were too defensive. They didn't have enough attackers other than Sample Roy. But when you look at them this season, they've a few attackers, most namely other than Mulroy, Darby Connon, 3 points today. I think he's got 10 points in the league so far. He's been superb. He was superb for Ardee St Mary's in the club championship, and he's now brilliant in the Division 2 campaign. Kieran Down, he's been brilliant. Conor Grimes is finding his form as well. Liam Jackson, brilliant. Donald McKinney. Noel Sharkey at centre back's been outstanding so far. Tom Jackson. Like, Louth have been absolutely brilliant all over the field. And that's credit to Mickey Hart as well. And does that cement Mickey Hart as one of the best coaches in GA history? I know we were talking about Billy Morgan being one of the greatest, but if Mickey Hart can get Louth to the top half of Division 2, or potentially close to promotion, I mean, that's an incredible achievement for a team like Louth to get close to the promotion to Division 1. It's a credit to Mickey Hart. He's done an outstanding job and a brilliant results in Partalton today. And another thing, I suppose Meath fans will complain about sending off for Harry O'Higgins early on in the first half. Obviously, I didn't see it, so I can't judge on it. But that had bearing in the game too.
Yeah, Meath man does say here, actually, as a Meath fan, I hate to be bitter, but that was never a red card, and Meath played way better up to the red. But if one team deserved to rob Meath of a win, it's Louth, so fair play to them. Yeah, I suppose the irony of Meath fans complaining about decisions against Louth, but yeah, like, and I was thinking as well, like, when you look at Kildare's downfall, Meath started well with their opening 2 wins, but when you think Louth nearly bet Derry, and Derry have been very, very strong, could we make a case that Louth are actually the second best team in Leinster now? Or based on form, anyway.
I think definitely, yeah. Like, Tommy Rooney was actually making the point that Westmeath are the second best team in Leinster because they won the Tailteann Cup. But I'd argue Louth have been superb. And this raises another question, to be honest with Jaron. Does spending a year in the All-Ireland, like Louth played against teams like Kildare, Cork last season, and that ultimately improved them, playing venues like Páirc Uí Chaoimh and improved them as a team. Westmeath played in the Tailteann Cup against the likes of Carlow and all them. And ultimately, I think Louth have benefited better. I don't know, would you agree with that? So there is a case that being in the All-Ireland series for a smaller team, despite the fact you get so many defeats and you get a heartbreaking defeat now and again, it's probably more beneficial to being in the Tailteann Cup with the smaller sides. So maybe there's an argument for that. And I definitely agree with you. I think Louth, there's a case to be made that they are the second best team in Leinster already. They've been outstanding in the league game so far. And as I said previously, they didn't have an attacking element necessarily last season. They were relying on Sample Roy a bit too much. But this season, with the introduction of McConnon, Grimes is doing so well this season. Kieran Downey's doing well. Conan McKeever, Tom Jackson. I think Louth, attacking-wise this year, have actually improved more than they did last year.
Yeah, like, and let's not forget as well that Louth in the Leinster Championship, like, they play Westmeath, but then the winner of that will play either Meath or Longford or Offaly. So they're actually on the side of the draw that avoids Dublin and also avoids Kildare if they get their act together. So it could be shaping up to be a very, very special season for Louth, possibly even a Leinster final, which would be quite the story, really, from a Louth perspective. And I suppose for Meath, like, I mean, they won the opening 2 games, as we very well know. It does seem like there's just a bit of an over reliance maybe on goals, and they're just not quite getting enough in terms of point scoring, and that's something that has set them back a little bit. So, like, looking at it, did we rate them too highly after those 2 wins, or is this just a case of Louth being a lot better than what we expected?
Maybe a bit of both. I know that's a generic answer again, Aaron, but maybe it is a bit of both. Like, maybe we overrated Meath because they were one-dimensional. They just relied on goals too much. And yeah, when you look back at the games, actually, against Cork, they scored 3 goals. Against Clare, they scored 4 goals, and they were ultimately the winnings of the game. Against Derry, they scored no goals, and they scored 1 goal today. Like, for me, I just think for them to win a game, they need about 3 or 4 goals to win it. And I don't know, is that the right way of going forward for me? They are making great strides, no doubt about that. And Colin O'Rourke is starting from a certain base and he's doing well in terms of that. But Meath need to score more points. That's just the honest reflection. Like, I think today was their biggest tally of points in all their games so far. Or was it? No. So, sorry, they got 14 points against Cork. But 14-12, they haven't got 15 points or over in any of the games. You know, it's not really too well in point scoring. Grant if you score goals and stuff like that. I think their next game is against Limerick. Correct me if I'm wrong now, but against Limerick they'll score about 5 or 6 goals, maybe even 7. So that will get them over the line without a doubt. But against teams like Dublin, like Derry, like Louth today, like teams in Division 1, say Monaghan and Donegal, they'll come up short because they just don't score enough points. And I think that's the reason they've come up short. That's their Achilles heel. They don't score enough points in the team. And that's a big worry for Colin O'Rourke on his side.
Yeah, Gavin says here, I'm doing a league prediction bet for the games with my dad. And I was listening to you pick loud last week, Aaron. So cheers for that. Yeah, I think I did predict Roscommon to beat Monaghan in fairness. So and I'm pretty sure there's a few of them I got wrong, but I suppose we'll take the wins when we can. Tom says loud for Leinster. Not too sure I'd go as far as that, but getting to a Leinster final anyway is definitely very, very achievable in my opinion. Moving on to the last game to discuss in Division 2, it involves your own county, Cork. 6-18 to Limerick's 12 points. 24-point win against Limerick. So not a bad day's work, I suppose.
Not really, no. It's a brilliant scoring from Cork, scoring 4 goals in the first half. Look, to be honest, I was listening to the game online on C103, and to be honest, I turned it off at halftime because it was a nothing event really. When you think about it, but the pleasing aspect for Cork, like we discussed Chris O'Jones actually last week, breaking the Dublin defence. He scored 6 points from play today. So, like, that will give him confidence. That really, he didn't score anything from play against Dublin or Kildare, but he scored 6 in total today. He was absolutely superb. Fair play to him. Sherlock getting back at the score, shooting 5 points. We even brought off Brian Hurley at half time, and he scored 1-1 in the first half. I think, Conor Corbett scored 2-1 in the second half as well. Brilliant performance from him. So, good performance from Cork. And, right, we're going on the right road. We're playing Clare next week. That'll definitely be a bigger challenge than this, to be honest with you. I don't think Clare are as bad as Limerick. Well, Clare are way better than Limerick. Let's be real. Limerick, to be honest with you, are 0 points from 4 games. I think they're out of their depth in this division. So, could be a troublesome few weeks for the treaty.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people did predict Limerick to get relegated at the start of the year, but I think when you look at how comfortably they've been beaten in all 4 games, like it just doesn't look for a good viewing. And I suppose for Cork, like, can you read too much into this? Do you learn too much from this result? I mean, the fact you beat them by 24 points, like, it's a big margin. And like, when you think about it, Dublin only beat Limerick by 7 or 8 points. Cork are out there beating Limerick by 24 points. Like, I mean, you're 4 points behind both Dublin and Derry. We'll get the league table up in a moment. Like, do you think there's still a chance of creeping into the promotion race? Obviously, one of Dublin and Derry are going to drop points next week. So what do you think? Like, are you still in the hunt, still in the mix, or are you too far adrift?
It's a tough one, but I think we need Dublin to beat Derry more so, because the way things go, Dublin would end up on 14 points if that was the situation, and then Derry would be on 10 points going into the last game. But Cork win against Louth and Clare, which is no gimme, no doubt about it, because Louth and Clare are definitely very good sides, and I'm not discarding them. But if Cork do manage to beat those 2 sides, we'll go into a last round bout with Derry. We're on 8 points, Derry are on 10. If we beat Derry in that game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, we go up because of head-to-head. So I'd actually rather if Dublin win next week. Looking at Dublin's reaction, your reaction videos to Dublin GA and all that, I don't think that's quite likely the way Derry are going at the moment, but we live in hope. In regards, can we read too much into the results? Probably not. Like, I know people are saying, "Oh, Cork are doing well." Well, to be honest, like, a positive actually, we've scored 10 goals in 3 games. Like, that's ridiculous form when you think about it. We scored 2 against Dublin and Kildare, and we scored 6 today. So any day you score 6 goals, it's a brilliant showing. So fair play to Cork for that. But yeah, we shouldn't read too much into it. But clear and loud, that's the next step for these players. But in the past hour, before we move on, in the past, Cork would have folded in these games. But the fact we beat them by 24 points, in a way, it shows progression. But in another way, look, it's only Limerick.
Yeah, well, we'll look at the Division 2 table right there in front of us. So as we see, Derry and Dublin both on 8 points, Cork and Louth both locked level on 4 points, Meath still at 4 points as well, Kildare and Clare with 2 points, and Limerick, as we can see there, bottom of the league with a minus 47 score difference as well, the worst across all 4 divisions. We'll just have a look at the Division 1 table as well, because I forgot to put it up earlier. So Mayo and Roscommon on top with 6 points, Kerry, Galway and Monaghan all locked level with 4 points. Armagh, Donegal on 3, and Tyrone sitting bottom with 2 points. So just run through some of the results then from Division 3. So we'd Antrim 3-9 for Fermanagh, 2-13. A late goal once again from Sean Quigley. Just like last week, another late goal from Sean Quigley gets the win for Fermanagh. Down with a huge win as well at home to Westmeath. Certainly a result I didn't see coming. They beat Westmeath 110 to 11 points, and it was Offaly 14 points, Cavan 21 points. So Cavan have put 4 wins from 4, all very convincing and comfortable as well. So they're absolutely cruising through Division 3 at the minute. And we had Longford 11 points, Tipperary 1-11. A result that probably doesn't suit either side there. So what are your thoughts on those results there? I mean, another huge win for Fermanagh, 3 wins out of 4. Another late Sean Quigley goal gets the job done. And yeah, Down beating Westmeath. Not many would have seen that coming.
Not many, no, not including yourself or myself or anybody around the GA community would have seen that. Yeah, it's a brilliant result for Down, and yeah, probably Down, they're back up again after having a loss last week, and yeah, fair play to them. It's a big result actually. Longford and Tipperary a draw. I didn't expect Tipperary to go up to Longford and get a draw, so fair play to them. And what I was hearing from online sources, that Tip actually had one of them in most of the game. So yeah, Tip should have maybe got us something out of that game. Cavan have been excellent so far. 8 points. I think themselves, Derry and Dublin are the only sides to have a 100% record so far. So it's a credit to Cavan. Brilliant record for them. I'm sure J Mac would be absolutely delighted with that. And then for Fermanagh, yeah, brilliant result for them. I think Antrim will be absolutely heartbroken. Like, for most of the game, I was following on Score Bio, as I always do. And yeah, Antrim seem to have this game in the bag. And then Quigley pops up with another late goal. So brilliant result for Fermanagh. They're definitely in the promotion hunt. And I would think at this stage, it's going to be an all-Ulster affair, I think. I think it's going to be between Fermanagh and Down for the second spot. And Cavan will go up. And as for relegation, after the draw today, you'd have to expect Longford and Tip to wave goodbye.
Yeah, Dara says here, Cavan going under the radar this year. Could see them performing well in the championship. Yeah, like they've gone about their business very, very quietly, and they've been very, very convincing at the start of Division 3, which I think is certainly good to see from a Cavan perspective. I'm just looking at it there. There were a few comments there just in regards to the Limerick Tipperary game. I think Jack was saying that the tip point at the end was a clear wide, but I think the referee gave it as a point in the end. So some more potential controversial decisions there. But yeah, just looking at the Division 3 table then. So Cavan on top with 8 points, Fermanagh and Down both with 6 points, Westmeath and Offaly with 4, Antrim with 2, Tipperary and Longford both with a point. And yeah, like you feel like the Tipperary Longford draw, like in some ways it was nearly the worst result for either side, because both sides now without a win still, and like relegation looming really for either of those two, especially when you look at Antrim, who are competing very, very well. And I think at this moment in time, out of those 3, are definitely the front runners to stay up.
You have to take into account as well that Longford seemed to find something in the last few games. So maybe that's something that Antrim should be wary of. I know they beat Tip already, so I think honestly that draw does nothing for Tipperary. I think they're gone already, so they're pretty much gone to Division 4. But I would give Longford a slimmer bit of hope because Antrim are 2 points, Longford are 1. If Longford win against Antrim and they're up, and Antrim are down. And Longford have done this in the past where they tease us up until the last few games and then they come up with a really crucial win. And I honestly think form at the moment would suggest that Antrim are safe, but I think Longford still have something to say in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, just looking at the fixture list actually there as well, they play Antrim at home on the final day. So that could certainly be a bit of a relegation knockout game, actually, when you think about it. And just looking at Longford's final fixture, so they play Offaly at home, then down away next week. So 2 very tough games there. But looking at Antrim's fixtures, they've Westmeath away, and then they're home to Cavan, and then obviously playing against Longford. So you could very see a scenario where Longford and Antrim both take nothing from their next 2 matches, and it's very much, winner takes all going into that final game. Make no question about that. Moving on to the Division 4 results then. So we had Laois 210, Wicklow 212. Bit of a surprise result there. Laois's 100% winning record comes to an end. Waterford 1-6, Wexford 212. No surprises there. London 6 points, Sligo 110, and Leitrim very much still on the promotion hunt. 2 goals and 21 points. Carlow with 13 points. So big result there for Leitrim, Sligo, Wexford, and Wicklow. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Wexford, they seem to be getting wins all of a sudden. Now, that's 2 wins in a row now for Wexford. Pretty good record for them. And 2 wins in a row for Wicklow as well. Oisin McConnell seems to be getting a tune out of the players. So, pretty good record for them. Laois, like, I know it's 1 loss, but I think they'd still worry a small bit looking over their shoulder. And when you look at the Division 4, I'm sure you'll pull up the Division 4 table soon enough, but I think there's certain sides up there that really have a chance of going up. You have Leitrim, you have Sligo, you have Wicklow, you have Wexford, and you have Laois. Oh, there it is. Just like that. Yeah, it's 5 teams in promotion hunt now. And yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most exciting divisions out of all the 4.
Yeah, like when you think about it there, like you could easily have a scenario on the final day where like every game matters, and you have 3, 4, maybe 5 teams all still very much in the hunt. And yeah, like I think it probably is a bit of a reality check from a Laois perspective. I think maybe things have gone a little bit too well for the opening 3 matches, and this result certainly does set them back. But it is nonetheless a big result from a Wicklow perspective. Just running through how the league stands then. So Leitrim and Laois both on 6 points. Sligo in third with 6 as well. Wexford and Wicklow both lock level with 5 points. Carlow with 3. And London and Waterford definitely very much out of the running there from for the race for Division 4 in promotion. I suppose before we finish up then, who would you say has been your player of the week from the weekend? I mean, a lot of choices obviously to run through, but who stands out for you?
For me, I'd have to go Dermot O'Connor from midfield for Mayo. I thought he was superb, running the channels last night. Brilliant turning over the ball. Brilliant runner, got a deserved goal last night. So, yeah, I'd give it to Dermot O'Connor, and he's had an excellent league campaign in general so far.
Yeah, I think Aidan O'Shea would have been a good show for me. I thought he did a very good game against Tyrone. I think James Carr is very much in the conversation as well. You look at Darragh McConnon hitting 3 points versus Meath. I think he definitely put his hands up there. But of course, Shane McGuigan, you can't look past him. Top scorer now in the championship, 1-7 in that win away to Kildare. So things are looking very good, most certainly from a Derry perspective. Mikey says Leitrim versus Sligo last day could be juicy. Yeah, it could be. And when you think those two play each other, or are fixed to play each other in the championship, provided they both get over London and New York. So yeah, I mean, Leitrim and Sligo could definitely be seeing a bit of each other, a few times in the last couple of weeks.
It could do, yeah. It could be a fight for promotion and then a fight for a kind of final place. So, yeah, it should be very interesting to read those two sides. And don't forget, they went to a penalty shootout last season. in the Tailteann Cup. So, like, they know each other pretty well, Andy Moore and Tony McEntee. So, they'll have a huge bout between the sides again.
100%, 100%. Well, look, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Matthew, cheers very much for coming on. Make sure to check out the GA Statsman podcast when you get a chance. And for people who tuned into this, if you could hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you're watching after the show has gone live, make sure to get your comments in down below. Let us know what your thoughts of the game was. And for anyone who's listening on Spotify, if you could give the podcast a rating as well, it would be much appreciated. So cheers to anyone who tuned in, and cheers Matthew for coming on.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Happy to help.